Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. We're going to take a look today at a Marvel miniseries that's not necessarily forgotten, but maybe not spoken of too much based on the prices that I paid for these comic books. Obviously, it's not one of the big sellers. We're talking about Firestar, who of course originated not in the comic books, but much like the very famous Harlequin, got her start on television. So it was in 1981 that Firestar appeared as a character on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, which strangely enough ran at the same time as a syndicated cartoon just called Spider-Man. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends was on NBC. Now, it was initially designed to feature Spidey, Iceman, and the Human Torch, but the same licensing problem that got in the way of the Human Torch being in the Fantastic Four cartoon from the late 70s, where he was replaced with Herbie the Robot, kind of reared its ugly head here as well. And so they decided to replace the Human Torch with a very similar character, fire-based, in this case, though, a woman, which was probably actually a really good idea. A little variety to the show. It was a great cartoon, ran until 1983. They had a lot of other Marvel heroes and villains on that cartoon. I watched it when I was a kid, and I'm pretty sure it's the first time that I had ever heard of the Avengers or the X-Men. I probably knew who Captain America was just because he showed up on a few things. But it was a great introduction to the Marvel universe. And of course, we find out in that Firestar was apparently a former member of the X-Men. Well, hot on the heels of that successful cartoon, well, actually, no, about 2 years after it was over, Marvel brought Firestar into the actual Marvel universe with an appearance in X-Men number 193. This was February of 1985. It was written by Chris Clarement, art by John Romita Jr. and Dan Green. It involves the Hellions fighting the X-Men because one member happens to blame them for the death of his brother. That, of course, be Thunderbird. And that you can see there's Firestar up there in the corner. Looks like she's maybe squaring off against Rogue. Now, when she enters the Marvel universe, they make a few changes to the character. She's younger teenager, new to her powers. And she has been recruited by Emma Frost into her Massachusetts academy. Emma got there first. Now the miniseries, which debuts in 1986, is written by Tom DeFalco, with pencils by Mary Wilshire and ink by Steve Leialoha. And it feels like it was an attempt to attract teenage girls more into the Marvel universe, reading Marvel comics. That was a demographic they didn't do as well with as they did with, say, teenage boys. Okay. But it's not to the extent that it would alienate other readers. It is set a couple years before her first official appearance in X-Men 193. In this one, Angelica comes into her mutant fire powers as she starts at a new school, deals with bullies, and she has to also go through the passing of her beloved grandmother. So a lot of stuff's happening all at once. And when the powers manifest themselves, her father really freaks out. Now, her mother had passed away at some point in the past, so he's a single dad. He'd be going through an awful lot as well, but he freaks out about having a mutant in the family. He's not real big on mutants. That was a storyline that they did, and I think to some degree still do. So when Emma Frost shows up, good opportunity to get her out of the house, maybe so he can deal with his own problems. But we do get a big dose of teenage angst, rejection, sorrow, all that kind of stuff that goes with being a teenager in this book. Now, personality-wise, Angelica is really a much better fit for the New Mutants. Really could have used, Professor X and the other X-Men to sort of help her through all these problems. Now, Emma Frost plays the role of, sort of a stepmother in this, but really kind of more of a wicked stepmother. Because she wants to use her as a pawn. She wants to turn her into an assassin. She's never going to care one whit about Firestar. And this is a girl who really does need some guidance and some help with all the stuff she's going through. And of course, her fellow Hellions are not really going to be much help. They're not exactly brought up in the best way at the Massachusetts Academy. Some of them are downright kind of sociopaths. So it's a really rough situation for her to be in. And of course, this is comic books, you know, it's make-believe. But I think most teenagers, or any of us who can remember our teen years, we can relate to it. And that's one of the good things about this miniseries. The emotional work, the character work, it's relatable, you know. And again, there's other good things about it as well. But I think it was that element that was maybe supposed to help bring in the female demographic a little bit stronger into Marvel Comics. I mean, X-Men was already doing that to an extent, so this is probably a good way to kind of keep that going. Well, the connection that she does make at the Academy is with one of the guards, Randall, who's assigned basically to look after her. He works for the Hellfire Club, so he's, kind of a mercenary, but he's going to become important to her as the story proceeds. So that first issue, entitled Mark of the Mutant, introduces the 13-year-old Angelica Jones, covers her recruitment by Emma Frost and the Massachusetts Academy. We see all the things that she's going through, etc. It's a good start to the story, and the art's really strong. I like the art quite a bit, and really, especially when we're talking about faces, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty good with the action too, but Wilshire definitely really good with the character stuff, which I think was important to this. In issue 2, The Players and the Pawn, we see Angelica now at 14, so this is maybe a year into her schooling. She's adjusting to everything. She especially likes the stables and a horse named Butterrum, who she gets to ride and all that kind of stuff. But she's also beginning her training for the Hellions and her brainwashing and gaslighting by Emma Frost. And that ain't good. She's given a bracelet to wear by Frost that allows her to basically create hallucinations in her mind, allowing her, Emma Frost, to control what she sees and manipulate her. And that's what this is really all about. It's about manipulation. You're going to have people in your life who, some of them are going to love you and some of them are going to want to use you. And poor Angelica is dealing with, one of the worst users probably in the Marvel universe, Emma Frost. She's trained to see Professor X as evil, the X-Men as monsters and enemies. And though initially she does not want to kill or harm anybody, she's made to believe that she has no control over her powers, and that makes her dangerous. There's this Wolverine robot, which she thinks she accidentally destroys. And of course, she's worried, what if she does that to a real person? What she doesn't know is, of course, she didn't actually destroy the robot. This is all part of the manipulation. Like I said, Emma wants to control her. She wants to keep her unsteady. She wants to keep her unsure. She wants to keep her isolated from other people. Also, she can manipulate her and use her as a weapon against the X-Men and whatever other enemies she might have. Makes her feel very isolated. And again, you could see how that ties into teenage anxieties. They don't really know who they are yet. Nobody understands them. They don't understand themselves. Everybody's against me. Everybody hates me. A lot of those kind of things that we go through at that age. In this issue, a dance is held, and the New Mutants are invited, and, Professor X lets them attend, although he's a little worried about it. She hits it off with Sam Guthrie, Cannonball, and has her first kiss. But as that's happening, Emma projects into her mind, what are you doing? You could hurt this boy. You shouldn't be doing this. So kind of destroys that connection, that potential for love. You can see there's kind of there's a little bit of a after-school special vibe to some of these issues. Well, that night turns to tragedy when she's made to think that, having run away from Sam down to the stables, she's made to believe that she has accidentally set them on fire. And in the process of the fire, her favorite horse is killed. All of this being arranged by Emma Frost. She is one low mother. And it's things like this that are making Randall sort of like, I don't really like this. He's obviously developing kind of brotherly feelings for her. He wants to protect her. I mean, that was his job to an extent, but he really wants to protect her, not just from the outside, but from his employer, Emma Frost. And remember, she's a telepath. That's very dangerous. He has to tread very carefully. Now, in issue 3, This Lady Kills, which, by the way, has a cover by Art Adams and Bill Sienkiewicz. Emma Frost's manipulations go up a notch. Angelica's allowed to go home to visit her father. Not a good idea. He's still not quite ready for all that. And in the airport, a riot is staged. Completely staged. And at one point, she fights back against people, and she's made to think that she's maybe killed a person, or at least severely burned them. So again, she's made to believe she doesn't have control of her powers, and that's why she needs Emma to take care of her, even though, in fact, these are accidents being staged by the White Queen. We also see at this point the Black King get involved. He wants to use her to get rid of the Black Queen. So Emma starts plotting a way to make that happen. But all of this stuff is further disturbing Randall. Doesn't like the way Frost does business. He feels very protective of this girl. And so you get that he's kind of becoming more of a father than her actual father at the moment, which is good because she needs all the help she can get. So again, the focus on the series at this point is really more about the feelings that are going through Angelica and how she's coping with all this stuff. Well, we finally round everything off in Firestar number 4, the finale, cover art by Barry Windsor Smith. So this wraps it all up, the targeting of the Black Queen, keeping Angelica reliant on Emma. Well, Randall finally decides he's got to do something to help this girl out. He cares more for her than maybe he realized. And as a result, he gets kidnapped and beaten for his efforts by the other henchmen of the White Queen. Emma tells Angelica that the Black Queen had him killed and even stages an assassination of herself to make Angelica very protective of her. But all of this manipulation blows up in her face. When Randall escapes, in the process is shot. He manages just to get to Angelica before he dies and tell her somewhat what is going on. So again, love is what ultimately saves her. Well, at this point, Angelica finally declares her independence from the White Queen. She destroys her underground complex where all the training goes on and scares the crap out of her by making her think that she has burned her face severely. She didn't. But she basically says, I'm very powerful. I have complete control of my powers. And if you ever screw with me again, I'll be back. Good stuff. Good stuff. It's that, love is this key that unlocks this girl's potential, helps her see the truth, and really helps her come into herself. And she goes home to her dad, who's thankful for a second chance to do right by his daughter. In all, it's a very solid series. You get the action, you get the superpowers that you would expect in a comic book, but a more emotional storyline as well about problems with parents and finding out who you are and all that good stuff. Again, kind of like an after-school special, which is why I can see it may have been aimed a little bit more at getting a female demographic, especially teenager years, into reading Marvel Comics. Because, of course, with Marvel Comics, you read this one and then you go, well, who are the X-Men? Well, who are the New Mutants? And maybe you buy some more. It was a good attempt. I don't know that it really succeeded. And like I said, also, very solid art by Wilshire and Leialoha. Now, after this, Firestar really wouldn't appear again until 1990, 4 years later, in New Warriors #1, which I got to say is one of the few comics from the 90s that I do actively collect. It's a goodie. It's worth checking out if you've never looked at it before. But that is the Firestar limited series, an interesting series bringing a character into the Marvel Universe who started off as a cartoon replacement for the Human Torch. you can generally pick these up. Not a bad price for them. You might want to give it a read. Or maybe if you have somebody who you think would be interested in that kind of a storyline, who, you know, up till now hasn't been all that interested in comic books or in superhero type comic books, maybe get it for them. Let them check it out. They might enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the comments about Firestar. I give it thumbs up. You know, did you like it? Did you dislike it? Just let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Throw that in the comments as well. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Maybe think of subscribing, sharing with a friend. That would be very cool. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there. Read. Whoops. Got to get that angle right. Firestar. Oh, okay, no glare. Good. Read Firestar. And I will hopefully see you again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.